Hello, everyone. Oh, I was too loud. I'm sorry. I will learn. Should I just? Yeah, I think we can start. We are a small group, but it's fine. So thank you for joining. Welcome in this session. We are very happy to have four very active for the moment back home. Yeah, we're going to today's agenda. So we're going to start with a panel discussion with our four UPATI fellows. Then we are going to move on to a World Café co-creation activity. And the goal of this activity is going to be to generate one uncomfortable truth that you might have in your work streams and one actionable change that you might want to take forward and enhance the patient involvement systems in your own countries. Then we're going to have a short reporting back phase, and then we're going to conclude the session. So what are we going to learn in this session? We are going to explore how patient involvement differs across different national contexts, how patient involvement is hindered or boosted in these very same contexts, how a more robust and structured national framework could support patient involvement systems. And at the very end, during the workshop, we are going to try to generate these actionable steps that might support you in deconstructing tokenistic patient involvement systems. Oh, yeah. So today's speakers, we have Kristin Lind from Sweden, Mitchell Silva from Belgium, Rachel Ogola from Kenya, and Clarinda Sereyo from India. But I will pass the floor to them so that they can properly introduce themselves. Kristin, maybe you can start.
Sure, thank you, and hi everyone. So my name is Kristin Lind, and I am, actually what brings me here is really that I'm a mother. I am a mother of a now young man, 24 years old, who lives with a rare genetic syndrome, and that's what brings me to this work. And I've worked with patient engagement or patient partnership since around 2011, both in the US, where I'm from originally, and in Sweden, where I now live. I am a proud UPATI Fellow, and these days I'm also the Executive Director of UPATI Sweden.
Thank you, Kristin.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Mitchell from Belgium. So I think a lot of familiar faces here as well. So great to be back at Payoff. So I'm a UPATI Fellow as well. So I was in cohort 3 already some time ago. Good memories, actually. And it's also because, of course, I'm a patient. So I have EGPA, which is eosinophilic granulomatosis with polyangiitis, almost impossible to pronounce. And this actually also drove me to go into the space to see where can we improve the ecosystem, how can we have impact for the better to make sure that all of us can have a better quality of life and we can really support each other where we can. And I really look forward to the discussion to see how we can go to this patient engagement as infrastructure. So looking forward to the breakouts.
Thank you, Mitchell.
Thank you. My name is Rachel Ogola. I'm a UPATI Fellow. Actually, I'm the first UPATI Fellow from Kenya. Thank you. I'm also an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Many things. I don't want to bore you, but I'll just say what is important for purposes of this discussion. I also sit on the I'm chairperson of the African Regional Network at Global Skin. I'm also chair of African Community Advisory Committee at DNDi. And what I do every day is that I'm also the president of the Eczema Society of Kenya, where we advocate for health rights and health literacy and better engagement for patients at policy, clinical trials, research, and best practices in health. And more importantly, I'm a mom to 2 children who were born with acute eczema, and that's how my journey in eczema awareness and advocacy was formed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Clarinda from Mumbai. Also the first UPATI fellow in India, and for the last couple of years I've been the only one, and this year there will be a couple more, but that says less about me than it says about the nascency of patient engagement in India and in Kenya, I think. I run a podcast called Not Just Patients, along with another UPATI fellow who's based in the UK. I'm a patient engagement consultant, and I work with a lot of global organizations, but also trying to bring some patient engagement best practices to India. And I live with a rare disease, among other conditions that are more common. And yes, looking forward to working with all of you to co-create and solve some big, big, big questions.
Thank you, Clarinda. So we can start this panel discussion, maybe sharing some successes, some positive developments that might be inspiring for others, like what has worked well in your country. Maybe we can start with Christine again. Yeah?
Yeah, so what has worked well? I think this is it's good to start with successes. It's important for us to remember that things actually have changed. I mean, I've worked in this space for a long enough time now where it has felt sometimes like things are moving backwards. But if I look back at the arc of time that I've been doing this in, I can't deny that sometimes it's maybe one step back, but it has always been followed by 2 steps forward. Last week, a report was released in Sweden by the Swedish Agency for Health and Care Services Analysis. So I'll actually bring some data around what is working in Sweden, which I'm excited about. I don't know what I would have done if the report wasn't released last week. I honestly don't know how I would have told you, but here we go. So they did a survey of patient organizations, and 80% of the national patient organizations surveyed said that they had partnered in some way over the past 12 months, either with industry, with researchers, or with some sort of policymakers or authorities. So I think that 80% is a huge number. 60% of these national patient organizations said that they saw increases over the past 5 years. Now, that may be because things during COVID actually decreased a lot, but it's heartening to hear that the majority of the patient organizations sense that that the demand is increasing. And 60%, maybe not the same 60%, but 60% of the national patient organizations said that they wanted to be more involved in research. So we can see that the demand for patient and public involvement is increasing, and that the actual amount of involvement that's happening is increasing as well. And if I look at what we've done at UPATI Sweden over these past 5 years, we've, with the support of UPATI as our inspiration, as well as a number of other UPATI, I was telling you that you were a real inspiration when we were forming UPATI Sweden, that looking at our other national platforms, we've trained over 200 Swedish patients We have trained nearly 20 research teams just in the Stockholm region alone. And we now are also being invited really consistently to advise on how to conduct meaningful patient and public involvement at the policy level and the national level. So I think that I can really, as I said, sometimes it feels like things are moving backwards, but I can't deny that things are moving in the right direction.
You definitely gave us a sense of optimism. Thank you. Mitchell, how is the situation in Belgium?
No, I think I first would like to actually say congratulations on your achievements in Sweden, because I really think it's inspirational what you have been doing, and I think it's a nice example how we can learn from each other. So that's why it's very nice to be in such an environment. And in Belgium, I think I agree, we see there's some patterns in patient engagement. So often it goes not like this, but it goes up and down, and gently you go up on the longer horizon. And I think we can say in Belgium that bit by bit the culture is shifting in the positive sense. And one example is we have the Patient Expert Center. So I think about 5 years ago, I've done a feasibility study to see what would it take to set up a patient engagement or a patient expert training in the field of rheumatology. And the conclusion was we cannot do this only for rheumatology, we have to pull this open. So we actually pulled together different stakeholders and we came up with a full roadmap to actually set a patient expert center, combining disease-specific knowledge with more disease-agnostic knowledge. And so a bit mirroring the EUPATI course, but on a lower high level, let's say, so more easier entry level. And it's a success. So now there's over almost 400 patient experts that have been trained. And from EUPATI Belgium, we deliver part of the training using part of the modules, especially clinical trial involvement. And it's very nice that more and more patient organizations are also part of this ecosystem. At the same time, last year, we had a very good movement or initiative, and I think it's in Europe, the HTA, Health Technology Assessment Regulation, where on a national level, the patient voice has more opportunities to be heard and reimbursement of novel treatments. And this is really a good thing, because this sharpens the awareness from the whole ecosystem that we should take patient engagement serious and we should anticipate. So in Belgium, we have the commission dealing with these reimbursements. They actually have a survey they send out, which has 3 parts. So it's the experience on the disease, it's experience and knowledge about comparators as well for a new indication. And then the 3rd part is the experience on the novel treatment. And what we see in general is that a lot of patient organizations who get this survey, they can fill out a lot, except that 3rd part. What is the experience on the new treatment? Obvious, because of course there's only few people, if the drug is not on the market, who have experience. So there the clinical trials are so important. So this is, I think, also sharpening the minds. How should we look further? How should we make sure we can collaborate across all these different disciplines to make sure we get faster knowledge to share during such a reimbursement process? And maybe another success story on the Belgium level from EUPATI Belgium is that we're participating in the Erasmus Plus project called Pulpit. And the aim is actually to set up a framework to help academic institutions, bachelor degrees, to come up with a framework that can be injected into a curriculum to have students learn what is patient engagement. How can you learn the basics that when they become scientists, when they become physicians or nurses, that they are prepared? So really start all in the beginning when students are in their bachelors to get patient engagement as part of the curriculum. And I think this is a nice example how by working together, it will only have impacts in 5-10 years maybe, but still it's a nice example, I think, how collaborating can actually lead to change on the longer term. So it was maybe a bit longer than expected, but happy to learn from Kenya.
We are on time. Yeah. Thank you, Mitchell.
Thank you, Michelle and Christine. In Kenya, I know it's kind of slow, but patients are starting to be recognized as legitimate stakeholders in various arena. For example, last week, Joseph, you were in Kenya the other day for a conference, and you saw patients engaging at a higher level than usual. And I can say that even last week, there was a patient-centered conference by the biggest referral hospital in East and Central Africa. It's called the Kenyatta National Hospital. And the conference was a patient-centered conference. And for the first time, but they have always submitted abstracts in so many conferences in Kenya, but they are normally not accepted. Nobody cares. I mean, this one is for patients. They threw them away. Patient advocate, patient organization. But for the first time, I was able to submit an abstract, and the discussion was centered around patients, and also, my perspectives were taken into consideration by the government, and that is progress. We're in talks to start to form a patient advisory board, a national patient advisory board, which for us is a big deal. That's a big development. Yeah. And then also, I can say the Kenya Medical Association has started recognizing patient experts. For example, I was nominated to a mentorship committee where I'm given mentees who are studying medicine and pharmacy, to mentor them also on meaningful patient engagements. So that is a plus. Please clap for Kenya. I can also say that even the work I'm doing at DNDi as a committee, a community in the Community Advisory Council is more engaging patients and the government as well. So those are some of the things that, so patients are starting to be seen as partners, as serious partners. And also thanks to UPATI, my UPATI training and my background as a lawyer, I've been able to bridge that gap in a meaningful manner. So those are some of the success stories from Kenya. There are many here and there, but those are the major ones. So I would have picked certain at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
That's really heartening to hear the work that's happening in Kenya. In India, I think that there are a lot of small organizations that are creating huge ripples of impact. So there are hundreds of tiny patient organizations. There's one called Dakshama Health that's run by a very prolific person called Dr. Ratna Devi, whom many of you might know. She's conducted, put together these large forums called something called an International Patient Summit, something called a Rare Disease Hackathon, where she's brought together multiple stakeholders across segments to come together and co-create solutions, patient-centered solutions to care challenges. Right now, they're working within hospitals across the country to embed patient navigators, counselors, and bring more patient-centered thinking at the point of care, which is very novel for India. Then there's another organization called PACER, which stands for Patient Advocates for Clinical Research, which is an informal collective of about 40 patient organizations, and they work for bringing more patient involvement into clinical research. So they train patients to learn more about clinical research, clinical trials, and get involved, as well as bring clinical research training into medical school curriculum. So that's also novel. And a lot of rare disease organizations have come together to put pressure on the government, whether it be through media awareness, through litigation, whatever means they have at their disposal, to increase awareness as well as raise funds. And it's because of their efforts that we have a national rare disease policy now, and also that India became a signatory at the World Health Assembly resolution on rare diseases. So I think that a lot of bottom-up work through small organizations having impact at scale, and quite the opposite of what's happening in Kenya, actually.
Thank you all. Now I'm passing to my colleague, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. So we talked about the positive, the successes, but we also want to have the harder conversations today and maybe learn from that. So what are the key tensions and challenges that you have faced in your respective countries that you want to reflect on today? So maybe Kristen, you can open this conversation.
Sure, and I just wanted to make one reflection before talking about the tensions, is that you know, Rachel, you mentioned a patient panel. So Sweden only got its first national patient panel in 2018. So it wasn't that long ago. And as far as a national policy for rare diseases, Sweden got one last year. So I think that it's really important, when I think about my own experience moving from the US to Sweden, I assumed that patient involvement and patient engagement was going to look so different. I worked really hard for access with, anybody remember Obamacare in the US back in the day? And at that time, when it got adopted, we moved to Sweden, and I thought, well, Sweden has always had access. You know, healthcare is free. I mean, we pay a lot of money in taxes, but so they must have figured this out. There's not going to be any need for me to work with patient involvement anymore because they must have solved all these problems. And, you know, obviously the issue is so much deeper than our national contexts in many ways. This is like a real seismic paradigm shift. Sorry to use two jargony words there, but there's more I think that we have in common. But there are tensions for sure, and I don't want to make it sound like everything is moving only in the positive direction. So in the same report that I shared about, there were also some limitations which were identified, and these are ones that we in Upati Sweden have definitely seen. And that is that even if patients are being brought to the table more often and being involved, that involvement is often coming in late. It's coming in a way that's very tokenistic, and it's coming in a way that's really not systematic, or in a way that it's kind of ad hoc, or it's not actually leading to anything being different. There is still a fair amount of uncertainty, and I would even say distrust, about how industry and patients should work together. And we see that the need for even more increased transparency is necessary there. And one last thing that was reported on was that diversity and equity in the field of patient and public engagement is very low. So this is something that I think both patient organizations and the people who are doing the inviting need to really be working on and thinking about this. If I look at some tensions that I'm holding, a couple of big themes that I've thought about in the past 12 months is this idea of patients maybe being seen as subcontractors of data and experiences and ideas, of the prioritization of like patient involvement as a transaction rather than a relationship. Transaktion, interrelation, as we say in Sweden. And I think that this is going to be something that even becomes more challenging as we work more with health data, with AI, as digitalization and efficiency and speed becomes a bigger priority. I think to bring the human scale relationship and let it have the primacy that it needs is going to be a challenge. So those are just a few of the things that I'm seeing. And maybe, I don't know, maybe they're not at all the same things that you're seeing, but I'm curious to hear.
I would say yes. And I think in general, so you mentioned AI technology, so I think that we will have a bigger gap as well, so the AI gap. So the literate patients, the ones that can use technology, have access versus the one that have less access, will also maybe mean different resources, different knowledge, which could have impact on health outcomes at the end. So I really think we should consciously be busy with this and see how can we reduce these gaps. Another challenge I see in Belgium is that a lot of organizations, they still struggle to get members. When you look to memberships of patient organizations, in some disease areas, it's only 1 to 2 to 3%. If it's a rare or disease, then the numbers are way higher. But we have to really ask this question as well: how do we reach more patients? Because especially now in this technology bubble we often live in, we are having a risk that we're more and more just focusing on our own reality. And we lose maybe the opportunities that certain channels exist for information. So how can we make sure that we reach the right patients and we reach more patients? And we shouldn't just take it as a given. It's a continuous fight and a continuous effort that we have to play. And this is where I think also, I'm very curious in other systems as well. How can this be done on a systematic level? So in some countries, there's sustainable support from governments for patient organizations. In Belgium, it's not the case. Of course, there's patient representation from a government perspective, but these are not the patient organizations. There's really room for improvement there. And we really have to ask the question, how do we reach the ones that we maybe think we reach, but we don't reach? And then funding, as always, coming back again and again. We have to really be sharp every single day to make sure that we can sustain activities. And there, from a health economic perspective, I think it would be interesting to really see how could we work together across countries, compare ecosystems within countries to really measure what is the health economic impact of patient engagement activities and how much money does it save. Because I'm sure if we do a good job, and I hope we will see a very positive return on value, return on investment. And this could maybe move the governments as well on different levels to really invest more in patient engagement. But of course, it means dedication, it means collaboration, and making sure we have the right group of people who can calculate these or put these things into action and the right metrics to this. So a lot of other challenges, but we'll keep that for the breakout.
Thank you, Michel and Christian. I think I'll say in Kenya, we're still struggling with health illiteracy, and there's need for capacity building for both patients, patient advocates, and even the stakeholders. Patient advocates, patients, and patients as well don't really know, don't really have they don't know how to engage. And even the stakeholders themselves need more training on how to engage patients meaningfully. So that's where the gap is. So patients are seen as, they're not seen as partners. They should be seen as partners, but they're seen as participants. And that has created a gap, So there's need to bridge that gap with some serious capacity building. And also, I'll say, most of the practices we bring to the table are borrowed. They're not culturally made for Africa. They're not culturally made for ourselves. They're not culturally friendly, I'll say that. So we need to engage at, I'll say probably local level than institutional level by using local advocates, local systems that are in place to reach patients and also to engage patient advocates, So with that, institutions are going to be well understanding of the issues in place. But if you approach from a borrowed system, it will it will hit the roof. In Kiswahili, we say it a gonga. Yeah. So, and then also the way we are made in Africa. There's a lot of cultures and stigma that revolves around patient advocacy. It is not seen as a platform that is meaningful. And also there's also the issue of disease, stigma on diseases. If you're talking about cancer, if you're talking about skin diseases, it is seen as something that should not be talked about. So those are some of if we demystify the cultures, the stigma and the cultural beliefs, a lot will go on, patients need to feel, advocates need to feel that they're in a safe space. Organizations need to feel safe when sharing their stories, when going out there to the community. So those are some of the things, of the myths we need to demystify and the barriers we need to break. And of course, health inequity, access to health, geographical setup. Patients have to travel long distances to seek medication, to seek treatment, and also the gap on specialists. We have very few specialists. So, like, for example, we have only 30 dermatologists in Kenya against a population of 55 million. So you can imagine the dermatologists are so few. Even if they wanted to pass a policy, they're highly unlikely to be heard, Yeah, so those are the challenges that that we face. And then, of course, our system is so fragmented that you don't know where to start. Do you start here? Where is the HTA? At what point do you pick what HTA is? At what point do you pick which policy is to address what? So, the system, also the rearrangement of the system is also something that if it's looked at, a lot can change. For example, we have a new universal health coverage called the SHA, social health something, I think, authority. It has replaced the former one. And when you look at it properly, it's so complicated that patients have gotten lost in between, in terms of reimbursement and what is to be covered, what is not to be covered. It comes with various committees, but when you look at it properly, there's, it's a system that is very complicated. So those are some of the things that the challenges we face. And then, of course, our technology and development in technology is still wanting. We still have a long way to go, and that has barred a lot of work and a lot of progress in the health system, So those are some of the few challenges. I know we are happy to share more in the groups when we break out. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. So last year when I was traveling to POF, I was seated on the flight next to the head of cardiology of one of the leading medical institutes in India. And he was looking at his slides because he was going to a conference to give a talk, and I happened to see his slides. So I said, "Oh, are you a cardiologist?" And we got talking, and I said, "I'm a patient advocate." And he said, "Oh, what is that?" And that would not be uncommon at all in India. The concept of patient advocacy, patient engagement is so uncommon, unheard of. Even within healthcare, it's new. It's so that is one of the biggest tensions, of course. It's not recognized. Patients don't yet have a space, they don't have a voice. It is a very paternalistic, hierarchical society at the moment. Things like informed consent forms are just a formality. They're legalese, and they're not really meant to inform patients or educate patients about the process and, patients, it's the doctor has said so and the patients are doing it. There's very little scope for patients to ask questions. I was 25, this is my own story. I was 25 when I was diagnosed with my rare disease, and I was being offered a drug that seemed very aggressive. And my background is in science communication, so I would take research papers into my consultation and say, but I see all these other drugs that are in clinical trials, and why not this? And my neurologist said, what if I told you you could be blind in 3 months? And that was his response. And it broke me at that point, but it also gave me fight, and it also sort of put me on this path of patient advocacy. I didn't know it then, but I am literally one of 5% in my country who has the language, the economic means, the education to fight, to pursue that, to talk back to a doctor and ask those questions. What about the rest? There is such a huge health literacy gap. There is such a huge gap in all of those respects, and there's so many people getting left behind. So I think that that's a huge tension that I sit with all the time.
Thank you very much to the four of you for sharing the success stories and also the key tensions, and kind of also introduce the next part of the session. We wanted to ask you, what is one question that you've been holding in your work at this time?
Yeah, so these are some questions that we're hoping to involve you on. So for me, one of the questions that I'm thinking about is, I'm thinking a lot about champions. So in the system that I work in, actually any of the work that I've done in this space, the work is being done by champions, people who are willing to try to figure out how to work around the stuff that's broken. And they are shouldering so much work. So something that I'm thinking about is, how do we help the champions? How do we move beyond champions, individual researchers, individual patient advocates needing to solve big problems, and really systemically embed patient involvement, make it system-wide and sustainable. So that's something that I would love to talk with you about in a minute.
Thank you. And I will go a bit deeper onto the national frameworks that exist. So we all come from different ecosystems. We have different backgrounds, different expectations, different realities. And a question that I am really asking, also we're thinking in Belgium, we're part of Europe. Europe has the European Health Data Space, which is a very interesting opportunity to actually make sure we can collaborate more. But when you go back to the roots on a local level, you have to move all the stakeholders. Move means you have to make sure that you are aligned in terms of objectives. There might be people working on clinical trials. They want trials to come to Belgium. They want patients to be enrolled faster. You have insurance payers, governments as well. They would like to see, when we introduce a new medicine, how effective is this? What is the real world evidence that we can gather faster to make better decisions and maybe revisit certain decisions? There's also general access. How can we make sure that the right patient has access to the right treatment? Sometimes it still takes even some years before diagnosis, but then before you get the right treatment, this can be additional 10 years even. In my case, it was 7 years. So at the end, when we pull all these stakeholders together, there's a sweet spot. And this sweet spot means there's a commonality that could serve as a basis to think, okay, what if we could develop an infrastructure around the sweet spot? Could we then accelerate with one institution, one concept, all of these different pillars that will at the end benefit the quality of life of the patients? So this will be my session.
Right. So for me, speaking in this forum, working with global organizations, running a global podcast, all while living in India, always make me acutely aware of my privilege. And this question applies to all countries, because no matter where you are in your patient engagement journey, I mean, I see all stages of patient engagement, right? I see India, where it's probably 15 years behind from where it is in Europe. But wherever you are in that journey, there are people at the table and there are people getting left behind. So the question that stays with me and that I would like to discuss with you is, how do things like hierarchy and power imbalance shape or play a role in patient engagement, and how can they, how do they influence shared decision making, hierarchy, cultural norms, power imbalances, things like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Clarinda. I think I'll really want to hear what the biggest barriers in patient engagement are, and also what policies need to be included, what we need to include to achieve better policies in patient engagement, and how we can do this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. I would like to also first thank you for your presentations. It was really, really, really inspiring. And we would like to continue with the World Café. As they have already introduced, there are some questions that they've been holding in their work, and they would like to discuss them with you, debate, and see if we can, after this time, we can come up with some uncomfortable truths and some actionable changes. So a bit of logistics. This is going to be table 1, table 2, table 3, and table 4. And as you can see here, the different questions. So please take 1 minute to read them all and decide the table that you would like to be part of. And after 20 minutes, we will ask you to change and move to a new table to continue the discussion. As you can see, on top of the tables, you will find some papers. The idea of a World Café is that it's something informal, that you feel free to write notes, to write on the paper. So together you can build something. And yes, as I was mentioning, after 20 minutes, we will let you know. And the idea is that you all change and continue the conversations. The moderators will stay in the same table, but we would ask you to change and then continue the discussion in another table. So, sorry? Yeah.
Especially for the second round of tables, it's important to appoint a rapporteur in each table who will then report back during the reporting back phase the one uncomfortable truth and one actionable change. It can be more than one, but we need at least one. So you can choose your tables and we can start working on these topics. Okay, everyone's ready? Christine, you're ready. Have you appointed a rapporteur? Great. Well, we need to focus on sharing one uncomfortable truth and one actionable change.
Yes, we have one.
And if time allows, we can.
But we're done at 5:30, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll, Mike.
You will have time during the networking coffee if you want to continue. Changing. Yeah.
How much time do we have for this?
So I'm not reporting on that.
Oh, actionable change.
Mitchell,
We're
maybe
just going to present this.
Yeah,
you're the rapporteur. You have to, we okay, go. It's important, go. Yeah. Well, we have to focus on reporting one uncomfortable truth and one change, because we need one truth and one change. Yeah, one uncomfortable truth from all of these that you have generated. Are you ready? Uncomfortable situation, reality. You need to put again the question. You mean this one?
Okay, but at this
Yeah, I can leave this.
was for us that there are voices that are not at the table, that there's still a kind of
Yeah, so 1 and 1. I'm leaving you.
dominance.
Are you ready? Okay. So we need to report 1 and 1. Is that okay? Okay. And you will be reporting? Oh, okay. You're the reporter.
All right.
The reporter here?
Me from off.
Okay. You're the reporter. Okay. So we need 1 truth and 1 change, okay? Yeah.
Well,
One each, because we don't have time.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to keep it like very short.
Okay. Would you like to start, maybe?
Okay.
Yeah?
All right.
Yeah.
Is this? I don't know. Is this on? Yes. Okay. So we were talking here about making patient engagement inclusive across diverse cultures, geographies, and underserved communities. And we had examples from Kenya, from Ireland, and we were talking about how, well, that one of the uncomfortable truths is that we often have a sort of cultural dominance, which may or may not be in terms of the actual numbers of the population. And an example was that Ireland has become very, very diverse in quite a short period, in a short number of years. And so there's a need for diversity and reaching communities, underserved communities, without doing it in a tokenistic way. So the solution for that, well, we had actually several solutions, but it was about reaching out to those communities in connecting in the language, in the literacy level, using images, and specifically connecting with people within that community and using them as a point of connection and as sort of peer support, as cultural conduits, and finding also a flexible way to engage them, for them to be compensated in a way that is not posing any kind of threat to their situation, and in a way that the compensation is actually useful and meaningful to them, and enabling them also to define what that means. So the example in some settings, an Amazon voucher is not very useful. And what else did we say? Yeah, we also spoke about the importance of capacity building, which would not just be for patients themselves or patient communities, but for the people that they're going to be talking to, so that there's an openness and appreciation of the actual value that it brings. Yes, we need to empower patient communities, but if they're empowered and the people they're talking to are not, their ears are closed, there isn't a lot of reception. Somebody want to add something? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You can go on. Yeah.
Oh, I can go. I will. But I will stay to do this. Yes, so we were talking about our hierarchy, power imbalances, and health literacy shapes who gets a seat at the table, but we somehow also slightly touched upon things that were covered by Table 4, namely the underserved communities. So the uncomfortable truth is we will never get these people at the table because they are not being reached by us. If you are, let's say, struggling with housing or with something else, then you will be touched by an NGO, which is responsible for housing and other community work, and they have no interest in health unless the public health parts of things. And if you are an NGO that is working on, let's say, a certain cancer, you will be only focusing on that, and you have no idea about the housing situation because that's another NGO that takes care, and those both NGOs do not talk to each other. We work in silos. So, yeah, the actionable changes, because even at the table we said, but if you are struggling with housing, maybe you're not interested in having a word to say about your health. Well, the only way to know is, of course, if to ask these people. And what we do mostly in all the health-related environments, we wait for people to come. We say, oh, they'll stand up and they'll get their voice be heard. But because that is, we live in a consumerist approach of health. If you want health, go to the doctor or go to the clinic, or it's your decision. But that is, of course, never going to reach these people who have not even thought about the fact that you could ask for something or that you get yet your voice heard. So the actionable change would be, there is education, of course, to get people also to understand that it is possible, but also to go where the people are. So go more into community-based healthcare and reach out that way. So you will find people that may also have an idea about their own health and want to participate, but were never heard so far. So that was, in short, what we were discussing.
Thank you. And here? Yeah. Shall I just shout? Yeah, it's fine.
We've been abandoned, so I'm the rapporteur. I'm so sorry. Oh, hello, you're back. Oh, good. Just in time, just to see if I get it wrong. So, obviously, very confused. We are table 2. What does real national frameworks for patient engagement actually look like? And trying to turn this as an uncomfortable truth is the fact that the real uncomfortable truth is the complexity here. Like, there is no systems or guidelines. We've had some very beautiful examples from Mexico, some very beautiful examples from Zimbabwe, is that actually guidelines and actually a framework for even healthcare and disease care and all that kind of stuff doesn't actually necessarily exist globally. So how are we going to actually ask people to do a framework for patient engagement when they don't even know how to do condition engagement? That's the uncomfortable truth. So I think if we're going to bite this down into chunks, and what I really heard from the entire table is the actionable point is joining together. Keep joining together, keep bringing the people together. The more that we bring people together, the more we bring the right stakeholders in a meaningful way that are listened to and help understand the chunks and stop the sword fighting at the door. Then that is the actionable point from this, the actionable change. Connect, bring the right alliances and stakeholders together, because that will be exactly what means that we can actually lead with confidence.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So we are doing, where are we now? Okay, how do we move beyond individual champions towards sustainable system-wide patient involvement? What we came up with on our table is that basically some people actually like being champions, and then while some organizations are looking for champions, essentially, that's the uncomfortable truth, is some people just basically don't want to step aside. And the in terms of the way forward, what is actionable, we believe that the champions are actually, they're the icebreakers. So they're actually really important. They're the ones that break through the glass ceilings and set the pace. So they're the pioneers. So you have the early adopters, but then you need to think about leadership. There has to be leadership after you finish breaking the ice. There needs to be structure. And then, of course, you need to think about legacy, succession, young people, bringing in the youth voice. So we think it's really important that there is a process. Break the ice by all means, but then you need to start looking at a process of leadership, legacy succession, and youth empowerment. And then we also talked about it's really important to show impact to build trust. That's really important, and that obviously there must be basic training for everybody. And those are actionable points, we thought anyway. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Unfortunately, we have no time left, but we have the networking coffee break for this. You can continue the reflections and the exchanges. Thank you very much for all the hard work you've done. Just to let you know that the discussion is not ending here. All the key outcomes that you produced per table are going to be consolidated in one text that it's going to be available in signups following the end of the event, of course. So you're going to be able to read in more detail what the other tables generated. Please join me in thanking our amazing EUPATI fellows, and thank you again for all the hard work you did.